Hello, Crafty Meraki friends. My name is Aditi, and I am inspiring you all with a set of bold and vibrant tags today. Firstly, wishing you all a happy new year, and I wish nothing but love, laughter, happiness, and more crafty time in your lives. Now, today I am going to be using this birthday star mini slimline die, but not to create slimline cards, but use it as a base for my tags. And that's my first tip. Stretch your dies. Use your frame dies to create bases for these cool, unique tags. And I think that really works beautifully. I particularly love the rounded edges of the frames here, and they made amazing tags, as well as the fact that I have these nested layers. I was able to create a black backing for my tags. So, keeping that in mind, I have used the smallest size of the frame and die cut pieces from white cardstock. Since we're making two tags, so two pieces of white cardstock cut with the smallest, and later on in the video I will show you how I use the second layer to die cut two pieces from black cardstock for the backing that I was talking about. Now, setting this aside, let's move ahead in the process of creating. This week on Crafty Meraki's channel, across all social media platforms, we are exploring backgrounds with cover dies. And Crafty Meraki has a gorgeous range of cover dies that really helps create quick and easy backgrounds for your cards, tags, and any projects. But today in my video, I am showing you what if you don't own a cover die, right? How can you stretch your dies to create your own backgrounds mimicking a cover die? And that's what I'm exploring today. So for my tags, I decided to use this scarlet die, which comes with beautiful roses. And first, before diving in, I am going to die cut these on a piece of white cardstock for my first tag and a piece of white watercolor cardstock for the second tag. I am going to show you two different techniques, and I think that really helps stretching your dies, building beautiful backgrounds that work for cards or tags. Now, when I place the die onto the cardstock, I am not placing the entire die on the paper. I don't really need such a long stem. So I am just placing the die as much as I would like, in the sense that I want the flowers and the leaves and a little bit of the stem, because ultimately I will be cutting that off. So just keep that in mind, and I will just run all of this through my die cut machine and be back. Now, before I really move ahead, I am going to punch a hole in both these tags, just placing them on my crocodile and aligning them right at the center, because I then know where my string goes. Now, for the first tag, I am going to use the cardstock die cut floral clusters and my liquid adhesive. And what we are aiming at is creating a repetitive pattern by gluing down these flowers onto the tag. So I am just going to play around with the composition. There are no particular rules about it. I just alternate different sizes, offset it, place it at angles. I have certain parts of the flower, the leaf, just hanging out of the tag that I will later trim on. But just a tip here, what I like to do generally is pick the largest clusters and find a placement for at least two of those on my tag, and that becomes my starting point. So here, if you see just that bottom big flower, I glue that down first and then that second flower on top. And once I have these two down in place, I can then fill in the spaces with tiny clusters, with trimming off the excess and just gluing down partial leaves and complete that pattern. All I think we need to keep in mind here is that we are building a continuous pattern, something that looks like a cover die. And yeah, that's it, pretty much that, a repetitive continuous pattern that looks like was just cut out as is. So continuing to build the layers further, and you can see I trimmed off those excess overhangs and I didn't throw any of those. So I am using that trimmed out leaf and just gluing that to fill in spaces. And what this does is it creates that illusion that we want to create, that illusion of this pattern is continuing on beyond the paper that I see here. Now for one of these larger flowers, I am actually trimming it down before I glue it, and that's something that you can do too. Have your elements kind of arranged, use press and seal to hold them together in place, draw pencil lines at the back and maybe trim them out before gluing if that's how you prefer doing it. Like I said, there is no right or wrong way of doing this. It's just, what you are comfortable with. This works for me, and so I like to just play around and decide where the element goes, glue part of it down, trim it, see if that excess overhang part that I just cut out can fit in somewhere. And yeah, that with that I have completed, and you can actually see what this has done is given me such a gorgeous print. And now when you look at it, can you actually tell that we have assembled individual die cut elements onto the tag? Not quite, right? It actually looks like a background. Now to further build and add color, I am going to be using these Catherine Pooler inks, and I'm going to do like a gradient ink blending. So I've chosen a pink, a purple and a blue. I'm going to run the blending brush over the paper, and instantly you can see right where we have those elements that we've glued down with the raised effect. It just brings them to life. The white on white, mind you, also look beautiful, so that's something that you can use and complete off with bling and sentiment. But today I want to create these bold, vibrant, rich in color tags, and yeah, I think these make for a cool gift tag as well. So continuing on with the ink blending, I have blended the pink and then the purple and smoothened out the transition, and oh my god, wow, look, that color between the purple and the blue when they two come together, I love that violet. Wow, that is stunning. I was not quite expecting that, but look how beautiful that turned out. And you'll notice I use the tools to create smooth transitions in between, and once I'm happy, I just splatter water and blotch that with a paper towel. And to further bring out that vibrant color, I am going to splatter some white ink all over this tag background. And I think this just adds so much more pop and detail and element to our tags. And then for more drama, yes, you heard that right, I love sparkle. So I am going to use the Wow Clear Sparkle embossing powder, and I have my embossing ink, and I use a foam blending tool just to pick that embossing ink. And what I'm going to do is gently rub that over the raised elements of the tag. So those die cut elements that we glued, I am just rubbing my embossing ink over those flowers and sprinkling this clear embossing powder all over. And then I use a paintbrush to get rid of any embossing powder that is on the background. By that I mean between all these flowers, because I just want that sparkle and shimmer on my roses, not on the background at all. So once I remove all of that excess powder, I am going to heat set this, and you will see This actually looks like a stunning background now. That sparkle, that shine, all that color. I am in love with this background, and I think this tag needs nothing more really. It's absolutely gorgeous. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, definitely. I love reading what you think and if you are going to give this a try. Now here is when I decide that I need to add a black backing. So just using that second layer from the nested frames, I have die cut a piece of black cardstock, and I am just using my tape runner to adhere this background that we've just created onto the black cardstock, and bring back my crocodile, reposition it, and punch a hole through that black cardstock as well. And right at this stage, just because my crocodile is out, I am going to place the eyelet and make sure that's down in place. And then I'm just contemplating on whether I want to leave this as is, and so I decide to use a white glitter cardstock, and I cut two of the flowers, but just the flowers, no leaves, no stem, nothing. And I think those make for amazing focal points for this tag. So adhering some foam tape, let's uproot them for more depth and dimension, and complete this tag with a phrase which just goes perfectly well for this particular tag. Now onto our second tag. So I have that white cardstock base. Now here you could cut the base out of watercolor cardstock as well. I realized this only after I finished making the tag because I'm doing a lot of watercoloring. So it would be good if you cut the base from watercolor cardstock as well. But repeating the same process that we did for the first tag, just playing around with the elements, placing them on the tag to create a repetitive pattern. The only thing that I am going to do differently here is, instead of using liquid glue to glue these pieces down, I am using foam tape so that all of these flowers are uprooted and have that depth and dimension on my base. So that's the only thing that I'm doing here different from our first tag. And that's the reason why I've just sped this up, so that you don't have to watch that entire process. And you could just, if you want to make both these tags at one go, I think you can just create your composition first before working on coloring and completing the tags. So I am going to be using these watercolor brush markers to color these elements, and I have picked out ruby red, rouge, emerald, and I bring in mountain mist, espresso, and paper bag later on while I'm coloring. And I use water brush markers to blend in the colors. Now how I like to do this is begin with the light color. I just add a little bit of that light color at the center of the flower, use my water brush marker to blend that in, and spread the water outwards to all the petals, and pick the darker color, here ruby red, apply that onto the petals and blend the two colors beautifully. I just repeat that same process over and over until I'm happy with the blends, until I'm happy with the intensity of the color, and I get a nice blend giving me those shades, the tints, the colors, just nicely, loosely watercoloring the flowers. Now here you will see my ambidextrous skills on display when I watercolor. I tend to do this a lot. Just hold the color brush marker on the left hand to dab in some color, and then use the water brush marker with my right hand to blend in all of that color. It just comes handy for me. And you will see I go back in with the darker color just at the tips of the petal to show those folds, the bends, and just add a little more depth and shadow and highlight. Also, since this is a die cut, and those crevices are actually cut out in the paper, it really helps when watercoloring. So I will add in darker intensity of that color just through those crevices, and the paper seeps those through, and it instantly creates more depth and shadow and the shading that we want. I quite enjoy watercoloring like this. It's so therapeutic and relaxing. And so, to complete watercoloring this entire tag, I have spent a little time. Like, it's not something I did very fast in 5 minutes. I took my time. I spent about 10-15 minutes because I wanted to relax through this entire process. For me, when I watercolor, it's more about meditation, and I don't like to rush that process. So, when I'm doing something like this, I make sure that I have enough time and I'm not creating a quick and easy project, but doing it more to enjoy. So, moving on, I repeat that same process on the smaller flower just to color it in the same way with the rouge and the ruby red, and constantly blending the two colors. Also, you will notice when one layer dries, you will then know when to add or where to add a little more deeper, intense color. So, work between layers, make sure that your layers dry, and then add more color. That's something that always helps. Now for the leaves, I am just using my water brush to moisten the area, and I am dropping in that emerald right at the edge of the leaf and then dragging and pulling all that color in to color the base of the leaf. So one single color can come handy here to create that shading that we need. And when I'm happy with just that entire color all over the base, I go back and just add more of this color right at the edges and repeat that same process. Pull that color in until I'm happy and I feel like yes, the leaves are shaded enough. And again, like we did for the flowers, I will drop in the color right at the veins of the leaf because it's die cut on the paper, and all of that color will just seep in and give me nice veining that looks quite natural once it all dries. Now for the stem, I felt like okay, I need another color, and that's when I bring in that mountain mist and add that lighter green on the stem to create my shading, and that really worked beautifully. So that's another thing I like doing. I like picking my colors from the same set. The fact that all of these watercolor brush markers come from one single set, I know that all the colors definitely work well together. So it just takes out the thinking from which color will look good with the other color. I think that really helps me a lot. So that is a look at all of those flowers complete. I have completed the coloring, and now we will move to the background. So this is where I bring in the espresso because I realize I want more drama. Remember, I told you I love glitter, glam, bling, and bold and vibrant. So yes, I thought the white background looked good, but it was not enough for this tag. So I am just using that espresso brush marker and adding color on my background using the watercolor brush marker to spread a little color because I want a blotchy effect, like a bouquet effect. Not necessarily bouquet, I don't think that's the right word that I'm using, but more of a watercolor blotchy kind of effect. So at some places the color is going to be dark, at some places it's going to be light. And now you know why I was suggesting that you cut your tag base out of watercolor paper as well, because I think the result would be slightly different than what I have achieved. Nevertheless, I still love what I have created here, and I hope that you like this too as well. So just completing adding that espresso color, I am happy, and I bring in the paper bag to add shadows. So I am applying the paper bag, that's the darker brown, just near the leaves, the flowers, just at the edge, and blending all of that in with my water brush marker. And you can see instantly this just adds so much depth and shadow. It brings these flowers to life. It creates that illusion. It works beautifully because we've also used foam tape to uproot these elements, and creates that stark foreground over that black background, and I think just adds that necessary depth and illusion that I need, creating that faux cover die look that I was aiming for, but with a lot of dimension here. So I just continue doing that around all the flowers and the leaves. And then for more shading, I am just using the vintage photo distress ink and distressing the edges of the tag, which are going to completely frame this and add that dark vintage background. And I decided the black backing would be good. Thank God I'm using the tape runner, because right after I adhere that, I realized I forgot to add splatter. So I'm just pulling that apart and adding white and gold splatter, because that is what is going to make all the colors pop and bring this tag to life. And once I'm satisfied with that, I will just glue this tag back on the black backing. Now with that done, I have my sentiment ready, and I am going to use foam tape to uproot that, because this tag needs nothing else. I don't need any other focal element here really. And bringing back my crocodile, repeating the same process I did earlier. I will complete this tag, and then I will complete both the tags with some shabby ribbons in matching colors. So I am using colors of the focal elements. So for the first tag, I've used this pearl white, and for the second tag, this dusty pink that would match my colored roses. And that's it. That brings us to the end of this video, completing both our tags. I really love the rich, vibrant look of these tags. The shimmer and the sparkle of this first tag is completely amazing, and the vintage yet bold look of this second tag is something I equally love too. So I really hope that I've managed to inspire you all today, and I hope that you give these techniques a go, and I would love to see your creations as well. Until the next time, take care and bye-bye.